Hello future cat conquerors, welcome to your favorite cat prep channel Apex Cat Coaching. I am Suraj Chawla and I am your Quant trainer. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel, like this video and also share this video amongst your friends who are preparing for cat. So far we have already uploaded two videos on the basics of ratio part 1 as well as the basics of ratio part 2, which is change in numerator and denominator. So if you have not watched those videos, please watch them here. At the same time, after watching them, please come down to the part 3 so that you can learn the concepts in the right manner. Right. So in today's session, we'll be discussing the basics of ratio part 3, which is types of ratios. It's a very simple session. Before we proceed, I would again like to tell you that whenever you see a question popping up, pause the video, solve it on your own, and then come back to understand the right way of solving. If you're doing this in this manner, then you're learning the right way and you're mastering all the concepts of ratios, right? So let's get started. Now the first topic of today's session is going to be inverse ratio. As the name indicates, inverse, right? So if I'm given the ratio as A is to B, right, which can be written as A divided by B, and if I'm asking you to calculate the inverse of A is to B, okay, so I repeat, if we have to calculate the inverse of A is to B, then practically or mathematically this is written as 1 by A is to 1 by B, right? But when two numbers are given, it's very easy, you can cross multiply them and you can write the ratio of A is to B can be written as B is to A. So why did I write in fraction form? Because sometimes we'll have to inverse three ratios, right? When we have to inverse three ratios, we have to write 1 by A is to 1 by B and also is to 1 by C, and then proceed and solve our required answers, right? So let's get started. Let's practice them. So very simple question. Find the inverse of 2 is to 5. Since there are two numbers given, right? If I'm saying 2 by 5 is my original ratio, right? The inverse of them becomes 5 is to 2. Clear? Just inverse them. B is to A आपका आंसर हो जाएगा. ठीक है? अब 3 वाला सॉल्व करते हैं यार. Let's calculate the inverse of 2 is to 3 is to 4. ठीक है? अब 2 is to 3 is to 4 का inverse क्या हो जाएगा? ये 1 by 2 is to 1 by 3 is to 1 by 4 हो जाएगा. Now if I'm supposed to simplify my fractions, then the best way to simplify them is always take the LCM of denominators, right? Now when I take LCM of 2, 3 and 4, what is the LCM of 2, 3 and 4, guys? So LCM of 2, 3, 4, we all should know that it is equal to 12, right? And we have learned in the first class of ratios that if I multiply the same number to each term of the ratio, my ratio does not change. I repeat, if you have missed that video, please watch that video and come to this class. Clear? Right? So if I multiply 12 to each one of them, my ratio does not change. So to simplify, I multiply by 12 to this, I multiply by 12 to this, and I also multiply by 12 to this. So what do I get here? 2 ones are 2 sixes are, 3 ones are 3 fours are, and 4 ones are 4 threes are. That means the ratio here becomes 6 is to 4 is to 3 in the most simplified format. Clear? So first things first, inverse of three ratios is 1 by A is to 1 by B is to 1 by C. Now when we have fraction, the best way to eliminate the fraction is take the LCM of denominators and multiply each term of the ratio with the LCM so that the ratio does not change, and thus we get the most simplified form of the fractional form of the ratios. Clear, guys? Now let's move forward. Now the other two types of ratios that we learn are called duplicate ratios and triplicate ratios. Now suppose my original ratio is x is to y. Clear? And if I'm calculating my duplicate ratio, so what will my duplicate ratio be? My duplicate ratio of x is to y becomes x square is to y square. Clear? If duplicate is x square is to y square, can you guess what will be the triplicate ratio? Right? I hope your guess is correct that the triplicate ratio would be nothing but x cube is to y cube. Clear? So first type of ratio we learned was inverse ratio. Then we learned duplicate ratio, and now we have also learned triplicate ratio. So triplicate ratio is x cube is to y cube. duplicate ratio is x square is to y square. Right, now let's solve this here. Find the duplicate ratio of 5 is to 11. So the duplicate ratio becomes 5 square is to 11 square. So 5 square will give me 25, 11 square will give me 121, and therefore the answer becomes 25 is to 121. Right, now let's solve this question. Find the duplicate ratio of 3 root 3 is to 10 root 5. Wow, so we have some weird numbers. So I have 3 root 3 whole square is to 10 root 5 whole square. Now this can be broken as 3 square into root 3 whole square is to 10 square into root 5 whole square. So 3 square is 9, root 3 whole square will give me 3. Clear? Similarly, 10 square is 100, root 5 whole square will give me 5. So 9 into 3 will give me 27 is 2, 100 into 5 will give me 500, and therefore the duplicate ratio of 3 root 3 is to 10 root 5 will be nothing but 27 is to 500. Clear, guys? Let's move to the next one. Find the triplicate ratio of 2 is to 7. So triplicate ratio, as we already learned, will be 2 cube is to 7 cube. Clear? So 2 cube will give me 8. Now what is 7 cube? 7 cube is 343. Clear? That is 49 into 7. So as a part of your CAT curriculum, you are also expected to learn cubes till 12, right? So please remember cubes till 12 so that comes very handy in this part of the video, right? Now find the triplicate ratio of 5 2 to the power 1 by 3 is to 2 3 to the power 1 by 3. So let's cube them. So this is 5 into 2 to the power 1 by 3 whole cube is to 2 into 3 to the power 1 by 3 whole cube. So this can be further broken as 5 cube into 2 to the power 1 by 3 into 3. Clear? Please be clear with these parts. So this is 2 cube into 3 to the power 1 by 3 into 3. So this 3 and 3 gets cancelled, this 3 and 3 gets cancelled. Notice 5 cube. 5 cube is 125, 125 into 2. What is 2 cube? 2 cube is 8, and this gives me 8 into 3. Clear? Now we can simplify here itself that this is a multiple of 2. We can cancel this with 4 here. So what am I left with? I'm left with 125 is to 12 is the triplicate ratio of 5 into 2 to the power 1 by 3 is to 2 into 3 to the power 1 by 3. So very simple questions on types of ratios. All you have to do is keep them in mind. If some easy exams, some easy questions come, you should be able to attack them in the least possible time, right? Now let's learn 2 more type of ratios. These are the last 2 types of ratios that we are learning. One is called subduplicate and one is called subtriplicate. Clear? When I say A is to B is my original ratio. If I am talking about subduplicate, right? So subduplicate ratio will be square root of A is to square root of B. And subtriplicate, we can guess what is the value of subtriplicate ratio. The subtriplicate ratio will be cube root of A is to cube root of B. Clear? So duplicate, square root of A is to square root of B. Subduplicate, square root of A is to square root of B. Subtriplicate is cube root of A is to cube root of B. So these are the only 5 types of ratios we'll learn. I repeat, the 5 types of ratios that we have learnt are inverse ratio of A is to B is B is to A. Then we learnt duplicate ratio. Duplicate ratio becomes A square is to B square. Then we also learnt triplicate ratio. Triplicate ratio is going to be A cube is to B cube. And then we learned subduplicate ratio is square root of A is to square root of B, and subtriplicate ratio is cube root of A is to cube root of B. These are the only 5 types of ratios that you need to keep in mind. Let's solve a few questions on subduplicate and subtriplicate. So I'm asked subduplicate ratio of 81 is to 49. That will be square root of 81 divided by square root of 49. So square root of 81 is 9. Square root of 49 is 7, and therefore my answer becomes 9 is to 7. Very simple question. Okay. Now let's move forward. Find the subduplicate ratio of 48 is to 147. Now let's see. So this is square root of 48 divided by square root of 147. So we can write this as 48 can be written as 3 into 16, Clear? Now 147 can be written as 3 into 49. Clear? Right? Now if I simplify, this will be square root of 3 into square root of 16 divided by, this can be written as square root of 3 into square root of 49. So square root of 3 and square root of 3 will get cancelled. Right? So what do I have now? We have square root of 16 is to square root of 49. What is square root of 16, guys? The square root of 16 is going to be 4. And what is square root of 49? The square root of 49 is going to be 7. And therefore, my final answer is going to be 4 is to 7 in this case. Clear? Let's move forward. Now I'm asked, find the sum of duplicate and triplicate ratios of 4 is to 5. Now duplicate ratio. What is duplicate ratio of 4 is to 5? So we know that duplicate ratio will be 4 square is to 5 square. Clear? Now what is triplicate ratio? Let's calculate here only. So the triplicate ratio becomes 4 cube by 5 cube. Clear? And we want to add both of them. That means my job is to calculate 4 square by 5 square plus 4 cube by 5 cube. Now can you please tell me what is going to be the LCM here? So 5 square and 5 cube, that means the LCM is going to be 5 cube. Clear? I already have a 5 square here. So this part becomes 4 square into 5 plus 4 cube. Clear? So what is 4 square? 4 square is 16. What is 16 into 5? Remember 16 into 5 can be solved as 16 into 10 by 2. So 16 tens are 160, 160 by 2 is 80. So this part becomes 80, 4 cube is going to be 64 and 5 cube is going to be 125. Clear? So 80 plus 64 will give you how much? 144 and 144 divided by 125 becomes your final answer. Clear? Right? So let's look at one more question here. So find the sum of subduplicate ratio and duplicate ratio of 4 is to 9. So subduplicate ratio of 4 is to 9 is square root of 4 is to square root of 9. And duplicate ratio of 4 is to 9 is 4 square by 9 square. Clear? And I want the sum of these two. So square root of 4 will give me 2 and square root of 9 will give me 3. This will give me 16 by 81. So what is the LCM of 81 and 3? The LCM is going to be 81. Clear? Since we already have a 3, this becomes 27 into 2 plus 16. So what is 27 into 2? 27 into 2 is 54. 54 plus 16 is 70. So therefore, we get the final ratio as 70 is to 81. Clear, guys? So that's it from my side on a very small and a very crisp video on the different types of ratios. I repeat, you just need to remember the type of ratios so that in case you see these kind of ratios in any exam, you should be able to save your time and get the answer in the least possible time. Clear? So stay tuned for the next video. That's going to be the 4th video on basics of ratios. Till then, all the best and take care.